When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Welcome into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. Two of us with fresh haircuts, Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill in New York City. My name is Tyler Maughan. That's the biggest news of the week coming in this week. Two freshly coiffed and very professional-looking gents in the office in New York. What's going on, you guys?
Not much. Yeah, I don't know what it says about us and our aging that we did get these last week. Like, we led the show last week talking about, and it still feels like we have haircuts.
Yeah.
The hair growth is not what it once was in our mid-20s. Maybe I shouldn't speak for Ben.
Oh, no, mine's out of control. I can't stop this hair from growing.
I wish I had that problem. I certainly do not. That is not an issue that I have. But, I just admire it and seeing it with my friends who get to kick off this week's episode of the Show Before the Show with a debonair flair. We are talking all things minor league baseball on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, as always, as we do. And you can get in touch with us, of course, podcast at MILB.com. We're over a full month into this 2026 campaign, and we got a whole bunch to dive into this week, which leads off on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show with Ben's Biz Banter, presented by Circle K, as we talk all things MILB with Benjamin Hill, and we are starting to get into road trip season. We're into road trip season for Ben, who is back from Joliet, Illinois, and already has another road trip on the horizon with a trio of really cool stops, one of which includes an entirely new ballpark.
Yeah, that is correct. It was just last week. I sent over a little dispatch for the podcast in last week's episode about seeing the big house ball game at Old Joliet Prison in Joliet, Illinois, hosted by the Joliet Slammers against the Gateway Grizzlies. Pop quiz. Where are the Gateway Grizzlies from?
Oh, I feel like I should know this.
Yeah,
I mean, St. Louis comes to mind, but
Close.
Somewhere in Missouri. Oh, they are in Illinois.
Sauget. Sauget.
Huh. Sauget.
No.
Sauget, Illinois.
Yeah. So, if you haven't checked out my story on MILB.com about the big house ball game, check it out. There's some video there. I think we're working on some additional content right now. But yes, I'm going back on the road next week. We're talking here on, Thursday? And on Tuesday, I'll be at a ballpark. I am going on Tuesday, May 12th, to Louisville Slugger Field, home of Louisville Bats, place I've been several times, including not too many years ago. It all blurs, but it hasn't been that long since I've been there. But I'm going to Louisville Slugger Field for a very specific reason. The Bats, on Tuesday, May 12th, are hosting Nothing Night. And I've been writing, at least incidentally, about Nothing Nights, going back almost to when the Lake Elsinore Storm first originated the concept. The concept is strip the ballpark presentation to its most minimalistic degree. No video boards, no music, no player walk-up songs, no between inning contests, and just present baseball in as natural setting as possible. So it might seem a little counterintuitive to go to a ballpark to cover nothing, but I think just talking to some people involved in planning it, I think the Bats will have some organ music. So that's not nothing, but I think that will add to the vibe. It'll be cool to write a story about that, get some video. And I found through the years, and one of the reasons I really wanted to cover this is that people have always been intrigued by this concept or wanted to learn more, or experience it for themselves. So I will be at Nothing Night, Tuesday, May 12th. Then on Thursday, May 14th, there's a kind of an off day, travel day in there because the 13th didn't have too much that worked in well. The Bats had a morning game the next day. Anyway, May 12th, Louisville. May 14th, Asheville Taurus. Their ballpark is now called Home Trust Park, I believe. But we've known it as McCormick Field going back to its 1924 inception. But that new ballpark name is in conjunction with a lot of ballpark improvements. So there's been some major renovations to get that facility into shape, meet today's standards, for the 2020s and beyond. And and if you want to learn more about Asheville Tours, check out the episode of Grass Race by our pal Jonathan Mayo. He's done a little travel log show on the MLB Network. But I will be there on Thursday, May 14th in Nashville. And there's a little thought behind that as well. Nashville is the original home. They train Thursday. So, you have the original home this Thursday on a Thursday. You can kind of get into that history a little bit. But
so does every minor league team have to pay them if they call it a Thirsty Thursday?
No, they allow every team
benevolently.
I wrote about it a decade ago. They allow every minor league team blanket approval. But if you do see Thirsty Thursday outside of the affiliated minor leagues,
you got to snitch. You got to snitch. Snitch. Send a letter to the Asheville tourists. You're like, no. This is not working at this random neighborhood bar.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
It is trademarked by the tourists. They first, it was their previous GM, Ron McKee, who was kind of a old school legendary character in minor league baseball. He was featured in Ryan McGee's book about Welcome to the Circus of Baseball. We had Ryan McGee on talking about his experience as a tourist intern a couple years ago. But he trademarked the term, I think, or he came up with the term in the 80s. And I think, by the 90s, he decided to trademark it. But that's where Thirsty Thursday came from the Asheville tourists. And in that time, I think the original Thirsty Thursday in Asheville was kind of what you'd expect for minor league baseball writ large in the 80s and early 90s. I think fans were drinking Budweiser, Miller, Coors, that kind of stuff. But Asheville, has really, it's been kind of fortuitous that there's the original Thirsty Thursday because their brewery scene is huge in Asheville, and the team
Beer City
played as Beer City Tourists for quite a number of years as an alternate identity. So I'm not just focusing on Thirsty Thursday, but I like that connection as well as a 102-year-old ballpark entering a new era. Not so much with the name. I mean, the name's part of it, but just all the renovations. So that's May 14th. And then May 15th and 16th, Erlanger Park, home of the, and maybe I'm slightly mispronouncing that. I will find out when I'm in Chattanooga. That is the new home of the Chattanooga Lookouts. That's a franchise, the first ever Lookouts team. They haven't played consecutively, but the first ever Lookouts team goes back to 1885. So it's an iconic franchise. Lookouts have played, I think, at like 6 or 7 different ballparks throughout the city. And this is the most recent, and it's built in a former industrial area that used to be a foundry, like an ironworks site. And looks like they were really thoughtful with the architecture and design in incorporating that industrial era into the new ballpark. So I want to highlight that, the design features of the ballpark, and check out a new ballpark. And, they used to play at AT&T Field, which wasn't that old of a ballpark. I believe it opened in 2007, or 2000, excuse me. And 2000, I believe, or right around then. But it was one of those ballparks that pretty quickly seemed older than it was. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but it.
I remember seeing your pictures from previous trips and talking about like driving up the hill to get there, right?
Yeah, they never. When I went there a couple times, I never saw it working, but they actually had escalators at the base of the hill to bring fans up, and they also ran trolleys from downtown because it was essentially a downtown ballpark, but it was up on a hill and it was elevated enough that you can walk it. But for people who are older or had any mobility issues, they had trolleys and at least at some point escalators leading to the ballpark. But, it didn't have a 360-degree concourse. The concourse was behind the seating bowl on the home plate and baselines, kind of dark, cavernous. They couldn't really ever do too much with the food beyond the basics. Not great in terms of group areas and just room to move around. Not well shaded, so when it was hot, it could get real hot at that ballpark. So, it had its charms like any ballpark, but I do think that was one where it was like this team in this market really could benefit from something different, and glad to see they got it done. So once again, Louisville Bats May 12th, nothing night. Asheville Tourists May 14th. The original home of Thirsty Thursday on a Thirsty Thursday, and a new ballpark, number 192 of my professional career, Erlanger Park, Chattanooga, May 15th and 16th. If you want to be a designated eater at any of those games on those dates, May 12th, May 14th, May 15th, May 16th, give me an email, benjamin.hill@mlb.com. Yet again, that is benjamin.hill@mlb.com. The designated eater, of course, is the individual I recruit at every ballpark I visit to eat the ballpark cuisine that my gluten-free diet prohibits. And so I'm starting that. I didn't have a designated eater in the prison in Joliet. They had some food trucks, but they had enough going on. I didn't do food coverage. Not sure about the nothing night food coverage in Louisville, because if they're really keeping the concept, who knows how much they'll have open. But certainly in Asheville and Chattanooga. Louisville, May 12th. Asheville, May 14th. Chattanooga, May 15th and 16th. Can I say it any more times?
I think people have got it. This is like one of those commercials where they have to repeat everything 3 times just so you make sure you got the website, you know when the dates are, everything is set.
Yeah, but now we need Tyler to come in with a super fast talking terms and conditions.
Email benjamin.hill@mlb.com.
Yeah.
Benjamin Hill is not responsible for anything eaten at the ballpark. Well, you brought up Joliet a few times, and I know you talked about it. You sent in your missive from the road last week, but this kind of ties into the interview subject we have for this week as well. Anything else, any loose ends you want to bring up about that experience with the Slammers at Slammer? Because it also ties into like a Route 66 celebration, which again is going to tie into our interview. So what do you have left to say about that now that you're a week away, a week removed from going to that game?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that game a lot, the big house ball game at Old Joliet Prison. That prison opened in 1858 and hosted baseball from 1914 until it closed in 2002. I imagine the team will be doing further iterations of that game. It has to be an exhibition game because the dimensions are like no more than 280 feet at any point in the ballpark. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it in future years. I was thinking to myself after the game, after I got home and was kind of digesting it all, the prison closed in 2002, and it would have been cool to have people who worked at the prison or were incarcerated there or some element of, personal history. But I don't know if that works within the confines of a baseball game in a quirky location. But that's one thing I found myself thinking about is like, can we really personalize the history of this place a little bit, considering that it's an ancient prison. 1858 it opened, but because it did have people living and working there all the way through 2002. So interesting to see just in general how that event evolves through the years, assuming they continue to do it. But it was motivated by the fact that it was a Route 66 centennial kickoff celebration event. Night Train Vec, who runs the Joliet Slammers, he told me Joliet is in the, quote, pole position for Route 66 celebrations because it's the first real city along the route of Route 66, which goes all the way to California, to the Los Angeles area. So this game in the prison was part of a Route 66 kickoff celebration. It might sound weird, like the freedom of the open road contrasted with come to a prison, a place that is designed to take your freedom.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but the narrative there is like that the Old Joliet Prison is now a community space, and we're trying to tell people this is the place you can visit. You can learn about the history. We won't shy away from some of the darker elements, problematic elements, but you can learn about this place. And as the Slammers team name makes clear, Joliet is, as a lot of different people put it to me in different ways, but, for better, for worse, defined by that prison. And there's another prison in the nearby area as well. Just in terms of, if you grew up in that town, you just were surrounded, or not surrounded, but you had this huge prison as part of the town and employed a lot of people. And it was just kind of part of the town's personality and lore. So it is an interesting thing to explore all of that. And now we're going to move on to a different Route 66 centennial related event. So these things are tied together. Joliet, Illinois, Route 66 centennial kickoff celebration, and Springfield, Missouri, also part of Route 66 celebrations. They're celebrating so much that the Springfield Cardinals, AA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals, who play in Springfield, Missouri, have just renamed their ballpark to Route 66 Stadium. So there's a pretty large backstory there, and I talked to the team's general manager, Dan Reiter, to learn more about it, and that's what we're going to do right now. I'm joined today on the podcast by Dan Reiter, the general manager of the Springfield Cardinals, who, as of today, more or less, are playing in a ballpark with a new name, Route 66 Stadium. So we want to get into how this came about. First, Dan, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. So excited to be able to talk about this, just because it's been a fun project, a passion project, and something excited to share the story about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it caught our attention because, you know, ballpark renamings are a fact of life throughout the whole industry and in all of sports. And usually, to be honest, it's, not very inspiring from a fan perspective. It's a corporate name. We understand the bottom line that drives teams to do this. So a team announcing something that was partnership with various corporations and entities and community partners, but something totally different like this that speaks to a cultural traction. Yeah, let's get into it. How did this come about? Because the ballpark was, Hammond's Field, Hammond Stadium, and now it's Route 66.
Yeah, it really all started. John Q. Hammonds was a huge philanthropist in Springfield, businessman, and he had built the stadium, and his company, when he passed away, had gone into bankruptcy. It was being bought out. Whenever that started, the concept of the stadium was going to be renamed really kind of has been around since about 2017. But there was some various things going on in some court battles where that didn't really come to fruition until the city bought the stadium in 2023. So at that point, we really started looking at how naming rights would work. And, it was kind of a little bit of drawn out before we got started, just because with the city owning it, there was kind of some back and forth dialogue about what that would mean. But as we started going down the road, it was just it felt a little awkward, and I think part of it was it wasn't named after a stadium. It was named after the guy that helped build it, and so I think that caused a lot of emotion. And I think as we were kind of going through the process, there was kind of just a random idea that fans kind of love to go to a destination. They love the Instagram moments. They love to be able to go to something that reminds them of their childhood and something that's, as you kind of said, like less corporate. And so what we started thinking about was like, well, if our city, if we weren't going to name it after a company, what would that look like? And we actually kind of came up with two different ideas. But the one that kind of really resonated with a few community leaders was Route 66 Stadium. And I think that's really, it's been a part of our community's identity. And that really got put to the national spotlight this past week. Springfield was the birthplace of Route 66. They sent a telegram to Congress to say, hey, this is what we need to rename the road. There's a spot in Springfield that they can tell you this is where the telegram was sent. This is where the original Route 66 ran through our community. And because of that, we were just selected to host the national Route 66 Centennial Kickoff. And we were on the national scene of being on the Today Show and highlighting what was going on. And, really before we even knew about the Centennial, though, the name kind of came from an idea of like, what would a fan love to take their family to? And really the thought process was, what about highlighting Route 66 as opposed to one company?
Yeah, but to bring this to fruition, a lot of moving parts here. I can't imagine how many meetings you were in over the years, but it's the Springfield Cardinals in conjunction with O'Reilly Auto Parts, the City of Springfield, Missouri State University, and Mercy, which is a healthcare company.
Yeah, the massive hospital system.
Yeah, so you got a massive hospital system, the city, a auto parts chain, and a university. Where does that even begin, getting that group, that coalition on board, and one, just getting that many people in a room or on Zoom or whatever, and then two, all agreeing on this is the way forward?
Well, now it's a long process, and really the idea of naming it Route 66 Stadium popped up in 2024, and you can see that we just got it announced. And it was, Springfield. Whenever a new business leader moves to town, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce, the city employees, other business leaders, visit Springfield, which is our CVB. All of them are going to tell a new community leader, like, hey, we're a very good collaborative city. That people work together to make projects happen. You get projects between schools and businesses, between colleges and schools, and they'll work together to get to go on the state representatives to talk to them as a unified coalition. And so really it does start with the nature of our community is that we work together. And I think that if we didn't describe ourselves as a collaborative community, I don't think this would come together. And really we kind of had a list that we had worked on through the city of Springfield, because they kind of had some naming rights, I'll say veto power in our lease. And so we kind of said, hey, here's the groups that we would love to target, because the what we portrayed to them was the image of like this awesome marquee in front of our stadium, and the stadium has 5 pillars. And if we could put five signs right below this Route 66 stadium, what are companies that our community is proud of? The thought of like when you show up to an airport, a lot of times you see some things about a community, or when you stop by the first time you go to downtown, you see things about a community. And that's where it started, about who were the right companies to approach. And when we started talking to them, as you can imagine, it was like, wait, you're doing what? It's like, so you want me to become a sponsor, but I'm not necessarily the name of the sponsor, but it's, the one link I'll say that every one of these companies had is what they understood was that the rising tide is that by naming this stadium something that the community could rally behind, it wasn't just about a local marketing deal. This was something that had a chance to put us on a scale of regional and national attention. And in the thought process of when people across the country are planning their Route 66 travel, well, now does it become a stopping point because of Route 66 Stadium? We've been a team that hasn't had a lot of concerts. When we go and we talk to an artist, does it sound cool that it's at Route 66 Stadium? It's just kind of that nostalgia, that ties in, baseball, American Pie, Chevy cars, and Route 66. And I think that those are the things that really resonate. And I think every one of those companies, when we were trying to give them the concept, and I think that's what they had to buy into first, was not necessarily what do they get out of it, but can we believe in the concept? And I think that's why it's been from 2024 until April of 2026 that we could announce it. But every one of those companies believed that it was something that was great for our community, and it was also going to be good for them. And I think so far the support that they've gotten and what they've seen from people, there's a wow factor. And I think that really this past week, Thursday, I guess it was Thursday, April 30th, Springfield was it was focused on the third hour of Today's Show. And when they have these shots of showing Route 66 Stadium, and you see those Route 66 shields on the main gate, and you see the sponsor logos, I think that kind of clicked for people that like, hey, this wasn't a local name. This is a national attraction. And I think that's kind of the companies that you listed. I think all of them have the ability to see big like that. O'Reilly Auto Parts, obviously, they're national, they're international. They don't just think about only what happens in the state of Missouri. They're thinking about the entire country, the entire world. Missouri State University, they're attracting people from across the country. It's not just a school for people that are from Springfield. I think the city of Springfield understands the importance of tourism and having the entire country look at us. And Mercy's been a wonderful partner with both the Springfield Cardinals and St. Louis Cardinals. But their sports medicine is unbelievable. And they've booked deals where with national companies fly into Springfield, Missouri to have surgeries because of how great their health system is. So for all of them, I think all of them see bigger than just what's happening in Springfield's backyard. It's how does Springfield look on a national scale?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good early returns. Change the name of a ballpark, and you have Al Roker taking batting practice within a week or so. So I do think that speaks to something larger, that it gets people's attention. And obviously, there's a lot going on with Route 66 this year. You mentioned the Centennial. I was in Joliet just last week for the Joliet Slammers playing in Old Joliet Prison. That was also a Centennial kickoff event. So just talking about this from the larger local history, this will hopefully inspire people to visit the ballpark, tied in with Route 66 road trips. What's the destinations, the attractions, the things about Springfield that beyond the Springfield Cardinals, you're trying to get people to be aware of and really spending time in the city of Springfield, Missouri?
It's the way I've described it, you always hear, what's your elevator pitch? What's your elevator pitch? and first of all, I think Springfield's about the people. And I think people that come here, they feel welcome, they feel appreciated, that people take the time. But I think you also need things to do. And I think when I've had, whether it's friends from college that visited or people from out of town, players' parents is a big one. You think of the players' parents when they come into a community, their sons have to practice, so they need things to do before the game. And I think that our food scene is actually is very good. I think there's a lot of really good local restaurants, a lot of really good local breweries. You obviously can't look past, Bass Pro. This is the world headquarters of Bass Pro. And the way that I kind of described our stadium of not just thinking about it as local but national, Bass Pro has done the same thing. They've got an unbelievable aquarium and museum there, that's not meant to be what I'll say a local zoo. It's meant to be a national attraction. And I think the other part is just it's the outdoors and it's the beauty that's here. You can go to communities that are 5 minutes adjacent and eat at a farm to table restaurant that's on a farm, and you're literally 15 minutes from downtown. And I think when it's not just Springfield. Springfield to me, it's like the urban heart of the Ozarks. We're kind of the city in the Ozarks, but anyone that visits this region, the natural beauty and the rolling hills and being able to, if you want to be in a car, you're 30 minutes from Branson, you're, 15 minutes from a farm to table farm to be able to have this wonderful food. But I do think that there's a combination of relaxation and excitement that brings people in here.
Yeah, and then another thing I gotta mention because you guys have done so much work promoting it. You come to Springfield and you got to get cashew chicken.
Absolutely, Springfield style cashew chicken, and that's another fun one you mentioned with the Today Show was that they like, hey, we're going to highlight this, but that's turned into our alternate identity because that's something that Springfield residents, when we go and there's 41 other Springfields in the country, that's one of those unique things is, hey, you know what, we've got Springfield style cashew chicken. Brad Pitt's from here. Those are kind of the funny things you tell people, but that style of cashew chicken, locals know it. I mean, it's served in every single elementary school in the entire Ozarks. And that Springfield style cashew chicken, it's our alternate identity. It's been wonderful. And it's opened up brand new world of merchandise for both young and old that are just excited to connect with their city. And honestly, as the city connect has become such a thing in Major League Baseball, I'm very quick to point out to people that started in the minors, that the minors, we came up with these identities to really connect with our communities. And we do it in a much, funnier, quirkier way than what the City Connect is meant to do. But that Springfield style cashew chicken is absolutely something I hope people try. And where it started was Leong's restaurant. And you can take a trip to Leong's, and I think it's absolutely wonderful there. It's one of my favorite lunch spots for a lunch meeting is to go and get some cashew chicken there.
Absolutely. Well, we're talking on Wednesday, May 6th. Yesterday, Tuesday, May 5th, was supposed to be the first official game at Route 66 Stadium in a quintessential baseball fashion. That game didn't happen due to the weather. So you've got today the official debut of Route 66 Stadium. Are there things that fans will notice? I mean, they're going to see the new name and the signage, but are you changing or tweaking the ballpark experience, the branding around the team, based on the stadium name?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something I feel from a couple of different people. The answer is going to be a process. Is that the first deadlines that we had were ordering signage to get it up in advance of the announcement so it could be on the Today Show. So, we already hit that first deadline. But right now we've got some stuff that we actually want to put on the outside of the stadium that we've never done. We are already talking to our concessionaire about, okay, what does this mean to become what's going to be some signature food dishes that we want inside the stadium? And so to me, that's a part of the process. Our marketing team we're evaluating ideas to say, okay, what's the consistency that when you come to Route 66 Stadium, this happens. And so it is going to be a process. I think step one, man, we had to get a lot of buy-in from our partners to be able to get the going. We ordered the signage before I had all the commitments. And sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. And when we kind of told the city that we thought we needed to do it, they were extremely supportive, understanding that it was a leap of faith, but it worked out. And so, that was step one. The next step we're in the middle of doing. For me, this might also sound silly, but I also think you always need a marquee photo. Is you need something where people go that this is where they show people. And we worked on that Centennial Commission. They had these really cool art sculptures, and we went over and we got one that's baseball themed that we set up in the exact location that your family can stand next to this art mural with Route 66 Stadium that's going to show up above your head to really create that one defining photo that people want to get. I grew up a St. Louis Cardinals fan. So if you're a St. Louis Cardinals fan, that was meeting at the Musial and your family gets a photo at the Stan Musial statue. Our hope is now that your family is going to meet at the Route 66 mural with the stadium above your head. And that really becomes that marquee moment that people are going to look for.
Yeah, well, it was a long road to get to Route 66 Stadium. I mean, it's fitting. Route 66 is a long road. Dan, thanks so much for taking the time to fill us in on all this. It is a unique partnership, and wishing you the best of luck with the official debut tonight. Hope the weather's better, and throughout the 2026 season.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, and it's a passion project that took a really big team and community lift. And I really do think it speaks so much to the city of Springfield that we're not afraid to collaborate. We're not afraid to innovate. And it'll be interesting to see if it's something that other people look at and shake their head and say, no way, or if it's something that other communities look at and think like, hey, this is a pretty neat path that we should explore. But, regardless, we're excited about what the future holds and really grateful to be able to take the time with you to talk about it.
It's a really unique partnership in Springfield, Missouri here in 2026 and beyond. And Ben, there does, as we heard in that conversation, present the possibility that maybe this is something that we see a little bit more going forward with partnerships like this between teams and community enterprises, whether they're, corporations or nonprofits or whatever it is. What are your thoughts on the potential for something like this naming rights partnership expanding beyond just Springfield?
Well, my thoughts, just from even a fan perspective, is of course I would love to see more ideas like this throughout, not just the minor leagues, but sports in general. Is there something about your community that your community partners can rally behind and see it as something good for them and good for the community writ large that speaks to the character of the town, as opposed to a standard naming rights deal that just attaches a bank or communications company or something to the stadium name? I mean, I find it just a lot more inherently appealing to be like, oh, where's the game tonight? Route 66 Stadium. That sounds really cool. And I give the Springfield Cardinals and everyone they worked with a lot of credit in pulling this off to rope together these disparate community entities and have people get behind something larger than themselves that will hopefully benefit everyone. Because as Dan was saying in that email, in that interview, will that encourage people to come to a game or as part of their Route 66 travels? And I haven't thought about it hard enough yet, and I'd like to hear what other people have to think, you guys as well as people listening. Can you think of other places around the country that sort of idea could work? What Route 66 is to Springfield, Missouri, could that be utilized somewhere different as a way to promote tourism in the area and something that is really unique to that community's character? I mean, does that
I already got one. For you. Sam does too.
Tyler, you go first. No, you, Tyler.
I was going to say Salt Lake City, the home of the Bees, which of course is not in Salt Lake, but is directly south of Salt Lake. Sandy, is that where the ballpark actually is? One of those.
It gets convoluted.
Not American
Jordan,
Fork, not Spanish Fork. West Jordan, I think. Anyway, I think you call that one some variant of. Well, now that I'm thinking about this, it could go multiple ways. I was going to say Big Five because they have the Big Five national parks in the state of Utah, which draws massive amounts of tourism to the state. If you could, promote your national parks and your park system and, all of the amazing places that you can see in Utah, I think that would be very cool. But I'm now also realizing that there is a sporting goods store called Big Five Sporting Goods. I don't know. Maybe they have those out there and you could sponsor it as Big Five, but just promote it as the National Parks connection. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool. Sam, what do you got?
Well, mine, maybe this is sticking too close to home again, but, Maimonides Park in Brooklyn, if they just called it Coney Island Ballpark, I think everybody would get the idea.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I mean, it's already a destination as it is, but that's just like such a perfect fit in the same way that, Fenway Park is. It's like, oh, this is what the neighborhood is called, and this is the name of the park.
Wait, is the neighborhood around Fenway Park called Fenway?
It's the Fens, so it's the Fenway.
Okay, interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah,
I've only been to Fenway twice, but yeah, I did not know that. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. I'm trying to think of some other ones that could potentially work for this. I mean, there's tons of them. I mean, this is another opportunity for us to learn something about your community and what you choose to name it after. What is important to you? Because to be honest with you, I would not have thought Springfield, Missouri, and thought Route 66. Now I will.
No, I can't. I've been to Springfield. It's been many years. It's hard to get a clear answer on the internet, but there's 41 Springfields in so they're making that's how crazy. I led my story based on this interview. It's like they're making their Springfield stand out. It's one of the most common place names. So when you hear Springfield, you just think you don't have a clear sense. And even though I visited Springfield, Missouri years ago, I never had a real specific connection in my mind with birthplace of Route 66. There's a whole story. Dan mentions it in the interview about a telegram being sent to Congress saying we should name this Route 66, and that's why. So that's why they get kind of one of the birthplace mentions. But it just opens up. And then the way you brand around the ballpark and the Route 66 signage and more Great American Travel type branding, and you start to think about the food along those lines. And I think it's interesting to see how this develops.
Yeah, and I wonder, one thing that comes up there in terms of the very different types of partnerships here, right? Between O'Reilly and Mercy, the hospital group, you can still do presented by, right? Like you can put that on the signage if you want.
Right. There's 5 pillars outside the stadium. So you have the ballpark name, and below them on each pillar, you have the 5 community partners that contribute to us. So it's not like they get no exposure, but how do you, just from a business perspective, when minor league baseball margins are smaller and what you get from a naming rights deal probably matters quite a bit to the bottom line, how do you replace that money or come close enough to replacing that money via a coalition of business leaders, the cities or county, universities? It's a really interesting question.
Or is there, because this is another trend that's going on now, right? It's Uniqlo Field at Dodger Stadium. Do you sponsor the field,
Nobody's
but
calling
you
it that.
The stadium?
Nobody's calling it.
What's that?
Nobody's calling.
No, I know, but
no, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
to a cool thing,
right?
Yeah,
right.
You still give the corporate partnership to the Diamond or something. Is that some way to find a middle ground here? I don't know. It'd be interesting. I like this as a starting point. That's certainly for sure. And yeah, I'll be interested to see what other teams potentially pick up the football and run with it. Or is this just going to be a one-off because it is such a unique situation with the Route 66?
It is a cool partnership in Springfield. Yeah, get in touch and let us know your thoughts. Podcast at MILB.com. And he is Benjamin Hill. Ben's Biz Banter, as always, is presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. And good stuff, Ben. We'll catch you for Name That Dude.
Yeah, sounds good. Oh, and I have to mention, I've continued to run every other day. And,
nice.
I even ran twice when I was in Joliet. It was kind of a new aspect of my road trips. Time is tight, but I made it out to a little nature preserve trail area. And then just the other day in this office, I see Sam towards the end of the workday getting into some running clothes, and I realized I'm inspiring his fitness journey.
That's definitely what happened there. That's 100%. I'm just checking in on Ben every day and being like, man, if he's out there, I gotta be out there. That's why I choose to live 2,000 miles away, so I don't have to work out at all. I never see you guys.
You were near me. You'd be running every day.
I'd be running all the time.
As many people as I can. I'm getting closer and closer to running a 5K all by myself.
That's awesome.
First,
that's awesome.
Running boss.
That is very cool. That is legit very cool. People would see me running and be like, how is it possible for a human being to be that slow?
But that's what you have to get out of your head. No one cares.
Yeah, that is true. Nobody cares
about anybody.
Nobody cares. Also, when I and this could serve as inspiration for anybody listening to this show. But when I am like driving around and I see somebody who, looks like they're really struggling and they're, maybe they're overweight or they're really just trying to get after it, I think to myself, like, good for that person. That person is working their tail off to try to, and me, I'm like, what do people think? What if my shoes look weird? What if I fall? Nobody cares. And anybody who looks at you is probably like, hey, look at that. Good for that guy. So I don't know. They probably wouldn't think that about me, but about
It's
real
always easier
good
to
people.
do nothing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. God, that's true.
Yeah, Tyler Moleman over here.
That is the truth. All right, you guys. Benjamin Hill, of course, you can get in touch with if you are interested in being a designated eater, especially benjamin.hill@mlb.com. And thanks, Ben. We'll catch you on the other side.
Thanks.
Well, big thanks to Ben as we move into our on-field portion of this week's episode of the show before the show. And that features the legend himself, Sam Dykstra, who is here to talk about some of the top hitting and pitching prospects who are pushing for promotion in the early going in this 2026 season. Sam, I first just have to throw out to you that among the guys we're going to talk about on the hitting side, there's a guy with a very pitcher name. Seaver King is one of them. And like, it's just such a good, I mean, obviously you're going to think of Tom Seaver, but like to be a baseball player and be that good, but be on the position player side and your name is Seaver King, he's got a lot of work to cut out for him to be the most famous Seaver in a baseball context, because there's already a guy on the other side of the playing equation as a legendary pitcher who's got Seaver in his name.
I've never thought about that, Tyler, until this very moment.
These are the things that I try to challenge you with, Sam, on every week's episode of the show before the show. I know this is we got a lot of brain busters on this show. All right, dude. Well, let's talk about some of these top hitting prospects who are trying to force their way to the next level, guys who are climbing up the minor league chain or into the big league landscape. And let's kick it off with hitting prospects.
Yeah. So just to, these are all going to be guys who are, I think, on the cusp of being promoted within the minors. We're not going to talk about guys who I think could be promoted to the majors, and except for in a few cases. And then here at the very end, we'll get to one of the top 100 guys called up this week. But just in terms of, we've seen a few moves already happen. Anthony Ianson, who I brought up on the show a lot the last few weeks, actually got promoted from high A Greenville to double A Portland. So we're kind of in that moving season time right now. So looking at hitters that have impressed me through these first, month plus of games, Seaver King, we'll start with him, Tyler, the number 7 Nationals prospect. There are a lot of arrows up in the national system right now. You talk about somebody like Ronnie Cruz, who I wrote about this week, who went from single A Fredericksburg to high A Wilmington. We talked a little bit about him last week as well. Absolutely thriving. Devin Fitzgerald's off to a great start. Eli Willits looks more comfortable with each passing game. He homered off the scoreboard as a righty just last night on Wednesday. This new Nats player development group is doing really well, but Seaver King is one of the poster boys for that because coming out of the draft, he was one of the most prominent picks in the 2024 draft, was teammates with Nick Hertz at Wake Forest and Chase Burns there as well. But he really, I won't say he really struggled in his first full year, but like when you saw Kurtz and Burns make the majors, and he was somebody who wasn't putting up big numbers last year at Double A Harrisburg, he got better at the end of the year in the Arizona Fall League. He even talked about like using Kevin McGonigal basically as a de facto hitting coach during their time in the AFL. But what happened there? And a big problem for him last year was he was too swing happy. The guy just likes swinging the bat. He'd be the first one to tell you he's going to be aggressive up there. And at Double A, they're going to absolutely take advantage of that. Now he's back in Harrisburg to start this year, off to an incredible start. Through 130 plate appearances, he's batting .318 with a .411 on base percentage. And I think that's the big thing to look at right there. With a .589 slug, he has a clean 1,000 OPS, 5 homers in those 130 plate appearances. But the walk rate being what it is, you look at some of his chase, that's way down. He's swinging harder at pitches in the middle. He was making contact because he has, that pretty good hand-eye ability or hand-eye coordination. It still was going to be weak contact because it was coming out of the zone, right? There's a reason why you want to swing at strikes. It's because they are more drivable pitches. His exit velocities, they sound like they're up pretty much across the board as well. So now I want to see Seaver King get challenged at AAA. People are a little bit split maybe on his defense at shortstop. How is that going to work? I think he can be capable there. I don't think he's going to necessarily knock CJ Abrams off shortstop, but I think he's somebody who's, now that he's improved his approach, should be somebody who's getting looks at AAA here very soon. It seems like I would say he's pretty well conquered the AA level. We'll also move on to Caden Bodine of the Tampa Bay Rays. He was actually drafted by the O's last year and then got moved in the Shane Baz deal in the offseason. So the Rays are really getting him at the beginning of his development, at least in terms of the beginning of his pro career. They sent him to single A his season, even though he's somebody with college experience and a lot of really good college success on both sides of the ball, because they also have Nathan Llewellyn, who, we're going to be updating the top 100 here pretty soon. He is a borderline top 100 prospect at high A. They want both of those guys getting everyday catching reps at different levels. So somebody had to go to single A. They weren't going to hold back Llewellyn. They put Bodine there instead. He's only strike out in 3.4% of his plate appearances, Tyler. Like, the guy is putting the ball in play a lot.
That's
ridiculous. He's batting 402.
3.4% is ridiculous.
It's absolutely insane. And, again, he's somebody who needs to be challenged. But do you push him to high A Bowling Green, or I'll throw out there, do you just have him skip that level completely and push him to Double A Montgomery? Again, he's a college bat. Like, the idea of a college player like Anthony Ianson reaching Double A, it's a little aggressive, but it's not unheard of. There's some other players we're going to talk about here who are from the 2025 draft.
Yeah, that's certainly not out of the realm of logical as a next step promotion for a guy at that level.
No, and especially somebody who's as advanced defensively as he is, with the throwing arm that he has. I think he could make the transition on that side of the ball pretty easily. And the fact that he's making this much contact and basically laughing at single A pitchers, like, you can't let him languish here much longer. This is not to knock the Rays for doing this. Like, I think, to their credit, they needed to find places for both of those guys. Stallings doing incredibly well at Bowling Green, but he's still so young. I think this is still technically his age 19 season. So it's tough to push him more aggressively. I would let Bodine do it. He's 22. We'll see how it goes, but would not surprise me at all if he gets moved here, definitely by the end of May. And is it Bowling Green or is it Montgomery? We'll see, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see him jump to Double A Southern League. And the final guy I'll mention here is number 4 Dodgers prospect, Mike Sirota. Mike Sirota leapt onto the top 100 last year in the Dodger system, was actually acquired from the Reds in the Gavin Lux deal. He's back at high A right now, absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. 329 average, 486 on base percentage, 671 slug, 6 homers, 1.157 OPS. He's somebody who's back in high A because he ended last year with an injury. They just wanted to see him get reps. And also the Double A Tulsa outfield is really loaded itself. I feel like we brought that up around opening day with Josue DePaula there and Zaire Hope there and Kendall George, who's stolen 100 bases in the minor leagues in 2025. So there just isn't the playing time for him. But also at some point you have to figure it out. Like, Sirota is just kind of languishing here. He's not being challenged. He needs to find that challenge. I don't know who you'd promote. DePaula's off to a great start in Double A Tulsa. That would be super aggressive for him, but also the impact is there. The contact ability is there. Like, he's arguably a top 10 prospect in the sport right now. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how they make it work, but they can't let Mike Sirota get wasted, at high A Midwest, in the high A Midwest League. I think he's somebody who's going to have to be challenged. He's clearly healthy now. He's clearly being productive. He's another guy I could see moving before May is up.
All right, Sam, let's pivot to the pitching side, where we're going to kick things off with a guy who just came out of LSU last year with the 3rd overall selection in the 2025 MLB first-year player draft. Mariners pitching prospect Kate Anderson, who threw 5 starts at Double-A Arkansas, put up some pretty decent numbers, 24 1/3 innings pitched, 13 hits, 1 run. It was earned. 38 strikeouts to 4 walks. He's got a 0.37 ERA and a 0.699 whip. He's striking out 14.1 per 9. and walking 1.5. Pretty decent. Pretty decent stuff for the now 21-year-old lefty out of Louisiana.
Yeah, he that 0.37 ERA is actually best among all minor league full season qualifiers, and that WHIP of 0.70. I'll truncate it because that's what we have on our leaderboard, but that is second best among full season minor leaguers. So Cade Anderson, I would say, meeting expectations, maybe even exceeding expectations. You know, we thought of him as being incredibly advanced coming out of LSU, somebody with postseason experience, obviously, helping the Tigers, you know, win a College World Series. And the fact that he's taken this quickly to Double-A Arkansas is very telling. Now, the interesting thing here, and this is where I'll sort of go back to something I said earlier in this segment, is that we're talking mostly about guys who I think will be promoted within the minors. But the Mariners really don't like sending their pitching prospects to Tacoma. You look back, like Brian Wu, Logan Gilbert, Emerson Hancock was back down for a bit. But like a lot of these guys are only in Tacoma for a handful of starts before they get yanked to the majors. I think part of that is the fact that they play in the Pacific Coast League. Tacoma itself is a little bit different than Albuquerque, Las Vegas, and Reno. But if you are going to play your road games there, that's a really easy way to lose some confidence when balls are being struck in the air and they keep going and going and going and going. So I don't know. It's very interesting because I think the Mariners are right there with some other teams like the Yankees for deepest rotation in baseball. That's where they find a lot of their success. And is there a spot for Cade Anderson right now? I don't think so. Now, of course, rotation depth is always challenged. So there will be an opportunity for him. But is he going to go to Tacoma before that, or is he going to stay in Arkansas and continue to dominate like this? I don't know. You watch him pitch. I know there's some questions about like the fastball quality, but it's got decent ride on it, and he throws it real easy. Everything just comes incredibly easy out of the hand. He does not look like he's overworking to get strikes like he is and to blow it past batters. So, we'll see how things go with Cade Anderson, but I'm really interested to see if they put him to AAA, if they hold him in the Double-A Texas League, or if he just gets yanked straight to the majors. That's the type of questions we're asking about Cade Anderson very early in his minor league career. This is just technically his second month of his first full year. Some other ones I'll throw out here real quick. Seth Hernandez continues to be somebody dominating Single-A so far this year. A 1.23 ERA, a 0.73 WHIP, 41 strikeouts and 22 innings. Like, he's giving up some runs lately, but even that is still really, really good. And the amount of swing and miss he's getting on virtually every pitch type. Like, I know it's very early for him. He's only in his age 19 season compared to Cade Anderson, who's obviously older. It's his age 21 year. But, this is kind of what it looked like with Connor Griffin last year, to be honest with you, when we saw what the Pirates did with him. It would not shock me at all if Seth Hernandez is pitching with High-A Greensboro within the next 2 or 3 weeks, given the way he needs to, see how batters do against the velocity. We know we can get up into the triple digits, but High-A batters can handle that better than Single-A for sure. So keep an eye out for Seth Hernandez. And the other one I'll throw out real quick is just Gage Wood, who is kind of lining himself up to be this year's Trey Savage. Now, a lot of that has to do with how good are the Phillies going to be and how is he going to respond to higher levels. But he's opened up this year at Single-A in the Florida State League, like Seth Hernandez, like Trey Savage did a year ago. And you think, for somebody like him, somebody who threw a no-hitter in Omaha, 19 strikeouts, like dominated at the very end right before the draft, you would think he would at least open up this year at High-A, but the Phillies looking at it saying, like, we don't want to send you to Jersey Shore. It's definitely going to be cold there in April and the beginning to May. Just stay at the complex in Clearwater, dominate around the Florida State League. We'll bring you up. Don't worry, it's going to work. And it has so far. I mean, he's got a 3.20 ERA, but he's 31 strikeouts in 19 2/3 innings with a 1.07 WHIP. So I think now it's definitely warmer up here in the Northeast now as somebody speaking from New York City. We're getting into the days when it's like sitting mid-60s. I think Gage Wood is going to see Jersey Shore. And I'm not saying I'm not reporting anything. I'm not, this isn't coming from anybody. Greensboro is playing at Jersey Shore next week. Wouldn't that be cool if both Gage Wood and Seth Hernandez left the Florida State League at the same time and
That'd be pretty cool.
I don't know if they're like matched up days wise. I haven't done that research before we started this segment, but that would be a fun high A matchup for both of those guys in their debut. It would be a fun debut series. I'm not reporting anything. Nobody's told me anything one way or the other. I'm just looking at the schedule. It'd be very cool for Pennsylvania baseball fans if both of their top arms debuted in the high A level in the same week, in the same series.
That would be pretty cool. And we're going to shift from a Pennsylvania squad to a Florida squad. The Marlins have been doing a lot of transactional work with prospects this week, and the latest one who will be called up to Miami is left-handed prospect and number 2 Marlins prospect Robbie Snelling, who is set to make his major league debut on Friday night against the Nats at Lone Depot Park. This has been already, as I just said, it's been a busy week for the Marlins. They have already called up Josh Eknes, who's their number 30 prospect, William Kempner and Stephen Jones, catcher Joe Mack, who is their number 4 prospect and another top 100 guy, number 52 overall, and left-hander Dax Fulton. They've all been called up, and now it's Robbie Snelling's turn. Sam, just a really, really interesting pitching prospect, Robbie Snelling.
Yeah, he is. And I know you got to see him very briefly last year.
Briefly and unsuccessfully, Robbie Snelling came on for the first relief appearance of his professional career in the AAA National Championship game. He blew the lead for Jacksonville in that game, but his team came back and beat Las Vegas. But the coolest thing about that was you hear so much about Robbie Snelling and, it's the football mentality with Robbie Snelling. He was a highly recruited football player. He's a very aggressive guy. He's a very hyper-competitive guy. And he got that nod as a reliever on a day in which, it seemed like, we're not going to see Robbie Snelling. It's a relatively meaningless thing. You don't want to get a guy hurt at the end of the season. And then sure enough, warming up in the 8th inning, I believe, and then coming in the 9th, Robbie Snelling, who did not have a lot of success coming out of the bullpen, but the stuff is electric. And obviously, that's not his profile, what the Marlins are expecting from him anyway, to be coming out of the bullpen late in games when he's not used to it. So this is a guy who, as a starter, there's a big, big ceiling out there in front of Robbie Snelling.
Yeah, he's back with AAA Jacksonville, or was back with AAA Jacksonville to start this year, and the results, whatever happened in that game, he's put it far in his rearview mirror. A 1.86 ERA to start the year through 6 starts, 44 strikeouts, 15 walks, so a little bit of control issues, but not too crazy. Opposing batters only hitting 116 against him, so his whip was 0.90. If you look at the stuff, his four-seam fastball has averaged 94.2 miles an hour. It's getting 18.3 inches of ride and 4.8 inches of arm side movement. So it's a little bit of a cut ride fastball there. And normally you would think the four-seamer guys are going to be able to touch that a little bit better. Opponents are only hitting 116 against the heater, which he is throwing more than 50% of the time. Going back to his days as a Padres prospect, there's always been this debate of what kind of breaking pitch does he have? Baseball Savant lists it as a curveball because there's a lot of break. There's almost 4 feet of downward movement on it. I've heard it called a slider in the past, but either way, the slider or this breaking pitch that is in the low 80s, 32.4% whiff. Opponents only hitting 132 against that. He's got a changeup that he only throws around 9% of the time, but it's got a lot of arm side movement on it as well. Upper 80s on that. And he's got more of a true slider. It's kind of like a cutter type, only 2.2 inches of glove side movement on that, and that's in the mid 80s. So I guess it's like a slider, and then a sinker on top of the four-seamer. So 5 different pitch types here from Robbie Snelling. I think you go back to what you were saying there, Tyler, that football mentality, that bulldog mentality. He's just going to kind of come right at you. And so far it's worked. We were talking about it the other day. Is there a true plus pitch here? I don't quite know, but the fact that he is able to bully batters with this four-seamer, with this curveball, breaking ball, whatever you want to call it, and this changeup, there's a lot to like for Robbie Snelling, and clearly he's made it work at the AAA level. The Marlins are a team that should be building around their homegrown potential stars. Snelling coming up, Mack coming up, Thomas White is looming. He started out the year on the IL, was rehabbing a little bit, seems to be hitting his stride for Jacksonville as well. He's got the highest ceiling of anybody here. There could be some exciting times ahead in Miami. Are any of these guys true stars? I don't know if Robbie Snelling's going to be like a number one for them necessarily in the way that I think Thomas White could be, but he could absolutely be a very reliable pitcher with this velocity, with the breaking stuff, and with the success behind him and the mentality. So excited to see how he's going to do Friday against the Nats.
All right, Sam. Those who are intrigued, of course, can read all of the latest and greatest coverage on those guys heading up, and so many more who might join them soon at MLB.com, MLB Pipeline, MILB.com. And coming up, we'll step aside for our final timeout and then bring it on back with a thrilling edition of Name That Dude. That's after the break on this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. Final segment of this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. You have probably been waiting with bated breath through this entire... What does that phrase mean, with bated breath? I'm going to look that up. Is that something to do with fishing?
I don't think it's baited in that way.
Not
think it is. It's
B-A-I-T-E-D?
I think it's like you're really into fishing. So
It's like your breath is
The
terrible.
patience required to be a fisher.
What's up with these
Yeah.
fishermen's breath? That's very strange.
yeah.
All right.
Although, not to go on a tangent, but real quick, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies released an alternate identity, the Binghamton Bobbers.
Oh,
And that's
cool.
Because what is now known as Dick's Sporting Goods started with an enterprising team named Dick in the Binghamton area selling like bait and tackle.
No
That's why
way.
they're the Binghamton Bobbers, yeah.
That's very
But anyway,
cool. That is
bated
very
breath.
cool. I'm going immediately to look at MILB.com/Binghamton to see the Bobbers logo. Bated breath is what you have all been waiting with to get to this week's episode of Name That Dude, in which one of us names a dude from baseball years past. Oh, the Bobbers logo is great. And the other two try to guess who that dude is. And this week, Sam Dykstra is the dude knower. Sam, the floor is yours and the dudes.
This is going to be a very extensive one, so just hold tight with me here as we go through
An
this.
interesting intro.
Yeah, I'm just it's scrolling through this guy's baseball reference page is an absolute journey in a good way. All right, so this player was born in Venezuela, so it's a rare dude who we don't have like draft information.
Andres
on.
Galarraga.
No, don't jump the gun.
That would have been great.
Let's
been great.
go through some minor league teams before we
All right.
shout out
All right.
things here. So his debut season was in 2008, his age 16 year. He played in the Venezuelan Summer League. Remember that? In both
I wrote a
2008
whole story about the demise of the Venezuelan Summer League back in like 2015, I want to say, when that was officially shut down. Yeah, that was an interesting league.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it sure does.
So this dude played in the Venezuelan Summer League in both 2008 and 2009 in the Cardinals system. So with the Cardinals, the VSL Cardinals, we'll say. 2010, he goes to the Gulf Coast League, which is now the Florida Complex League. He's there in both 2010 and 2011. So we're getting into his 20s now, and he still has not left the complexes. 2012, he plays for 3 different affiliates in the Cardinals system: Johnson City, Batavia, and Palm Beach. Palm Beach, at the time, Class A advanced. Batavia, Class A short season. So he skips over Class A completely here in 2012. And Johnson City, rookie level Appalachian League. 2013, spends the entire season with Peoria, which is then a Class A, Low A, Single A affiliate in the Midwest League. 2014, split between Palm Beach and Springfield. And then 2015
That's
goes
Springfield, Missouri.
Springfield, Missouri. 2014, 2015, then goes to the Arizona Diamondbacks organization and goes back to Single A with Kane County. Like, this guy didn't play in the minors that long ago. We're already on a lot of defunct teams here,
Yeah.
or teams that are no longer affiliated. He's also with the Bridgeport Bluefish in the Atlantic League that year.
Oh,
Now,
he
it's
was
not
an
clear
indie
to
ball.
me
Okay.
in Baseball Reference here if he went to Bridgeport first and the D-backs signed him out of that. That would be my guess,
Yeah.
because he was with Bridgeport, and this is going to give a little bit away here, for 30 games and Kane County for 86.
Okay. So he's a position player.
2016.
He's either a position player or a very well used reliever. Maybe not well
Yeah.
used, a very used reliever. 116 appearances.
Who's to say? 2016, he's with Visalia for one game, then goes to Double-A Mobile, and even gets some time at Triple-A Reno. This is his age 24 season. So obviously climbing the ranks here a little bit. 2017 spent mostly in Reno, but finally makes that major league debut for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Gets 12 games with the D-backs in 2017. 2018, similar story, mostly with Reno, 14 games with the D-backs. 2019, similar deal, but only 28 games with Reno this time, 92 with Arizona. 2020, obviously the weird COVID year, but especially weird for this player who played 8 games with Arizona, 10 games with Minnesota, and 6 games for the Chicago Cubs. So 2020, at a time when we were all told, stay home, do not move around, this guy played for 3 different major league teams. 2001, back with Reno. 2021, back with Reno, but also had time with the Pirates, the Cubs, and the D-backs on the major league side. 2002.
22.
Why do I keep doing this? 2022. Thank you, Tyler. 2022.
Wait, so in 2020 and 2021, he spent time in 3 different systems?
Yeah.
In each year?
Each year.
Wow. Okay.
2002, 22. Let me say that 22 times to get it out of my system. 2022, he goes to both the AAA teams of the Chicago Cubs and the Washington Nationals, and he plays games for both major league teams as well. 63 games in the majors that year in 2022. Most of it with Washington, 53 of those games with Washington in the majors. 2023, 86 games with the Nats, a few with the Rochester Red Wings. 2004, 97 games.
24?
Why am I skipping this? I have no idea. Okay.
We all long for simpler times, Sam.
Yes, we do. 2024 with the Nats. 2025 split between Reno and Arizona. 2026, which is the current year we are in, only with Arizona. 28 games with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I will give hints after this.
I have a guess.
But I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I can't
remember how to say his name. It's like does his name start with an I?
It does start with
Ildemaro Vargas.
There you go.
Ildemaro Vargas, yes.
We both got it. Look at us, Ben. That's
why?
So funny.
Sam, maybe we read the same thing, Sam, but I think it was in like the Athletic baseball newsletter. There was like a little bit about him and how well traveled he'd been, but yet he's one of the best hitters in the early going of this season.
He's got a 177 OPS plus this season. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, he famously had a 24-game hitting streak for the D-backs this season that ranged from March 30th to May 1st, so just finished up 6 days ago as of recording. Batted .404 over that time, had an OPS of 1.131. Vargas kind of making things a little complicated in a good way for Arizona, because it felt like they had a pretty well set infield. And now all of a sudden, when he's performing like he is, and they brought up the rookie Jose Fernandez, who's had a breakout rookie year so far, it's a lot of pieces that they got to fit in there in that Arizona lineup. But yeah, absolutely having an incredible season. He's had 10 years in the majors.
Yeah. He's 34.
I mean, we just went through all the various stops he's had over 10 years. His career WAR is just 3.3, 1.5 of which comes from this season alone.
And another 1.5 comes from 2022. So he has like all but 0.3 WAR in the span of 2 seasons. The other thing that I find wild about his baseball reference page is he with the D-backs, he's posted 1.9 WAR in 210 games played. With the Nationals, he posted 1.9 WAR in 234 games played. But he was at the D-backs for parts of 7 seasons, and with the Nats for parts of 3. And it's sort of funny because, like, I think of him as a National, and you remember all these other stops, and it's like, I don't know what he was on the Twins for 10 games. What?
4th stint with the D-back?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty insane. Yeah. Multiple years, like we said, with 3 different teams. But But yeah, he's found a home, and he's performing like he needs to play every day.
Good
His
for
6
him.
homers already tie his career high, which came in 2019 with the Diamondbacks.
Not bad. It's
Not bad. So we love to celebrate breakouts here, and he's certainly having one of those. Ildemaro Vargas.
Man. Ildemaro Vargas. Big congrats to him. 364, 386, 627 is his slash line as of right now, with a 177 OPS plus, as we noted, and a 1013 OPS. That is very cool. And not only do we like to celebrate breakouts, but I feel like the three of us especially, we like to celebrate the guys who didn't give up. Like for Ildemaro Vargas to have been signed as a professional player and slogged through, a decade in the minor leagues without ever really getting a crack at the big league level. And then all of a sudden in his age 34 season, or I guess really his age 32 season, to kind of make himself into a major league regular is pretty amazing. But yeah, to have signed in 2008 and debuted that year, and just now in your age 34 season to be like, that guy could be an all-star, that is really cool. So big congrats.
We love to celebrate folks thriving in their mid-30s.
Yes, we do. Even those of us who are past our prime, past our mid-30s, we still look back wistfully on the days of yore, like those young 1990, 91 birthdays. Ildemaro Vargas was a July 16th, 91, Sam. So he's slightly younger than you, right?
He is slightly younger than me, yes.
Today is the 16th anniversary of Jamie Moyer at age 47, pitching a shutout against the Braves at 47, complete game shutout.
Not only does Jamie Moyer live large in the brains of, I feel like, all of us who grew up in this generation, but he has a son who plays baseball at my alma mater at the University of Nebraska, and he owns an international scout. So I really need to be friends with Jamie Moyer. That's just to bring this all back to me for a second. I really desperately need to be friends with Jamie Moyer.
Well, for me, I feel like my algorithm every once in a while just spits out his Mariners commercial, in which it's the radar gun.
So good.
Only spits it out in kilometers because he got it in France. And it says like 95, and they're like 95 miles an hour. It's like, no, that's kilometers. And then he keeps throwing it, and he just goes, ooh la la. Another perfect Mariners ad.
A good Mariners commercial is the greatest. Ildemaro Vargas, big congrats on the start to your 2026 season and for being the answer to this week's Name That Dude, which obviously is the biggest honor in recent memory for Ildemaro Vargas, who I believe has a National League Player of the Week award this season, but only so many guys get to be on Name That Dude. So that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. For Benjamin Hill, for Sam Dykstra, for all the rest, my name is Tyler Maughan. We'll catch you next week.